It definitely just felt like a statement that I had to make to go forward. Really, like everything on Virgin felt like if I don't make this group of statements, my throat's going to stay locked up, you know. Each of them kind of had to come out, come what may.
Come what may.
Because I'm so aware of no one wants to impinge on the space of kids who are like on the front lines. Because it truly is like a battle being fought in this country.
That's right.
It is so major. But at the same time, I was like, it is my experience. And I believe that it's valid, even if it is harder to box up, even if it doesn't maybe feel like an arrival. It's not an arrival. That's why I've got duct tape on my chest. There's an impermanence to it. There's a short-term fix to it.
We have to keep asking ourselves and others questions, and we get very attached to the idea of arrival. All of us do, for some kind of answer that's going to give us purpose or clarity, right? But we don't get them.
It's life, baby. It's so good to see you. Don't you love that we do this?
I do. I look forward to it every time, but never more than I have this time, which I hope is every time. But it definitely makes sense for me because this album, Virgin, that you've created, I just hear everything that you've, at least through the music, that you've been through to tell this truth. And truth is the order of the day.
Full transparency.
Full transparency. And we talk a lot about that in life. Even away from the arts, we talk about this idea of like, I just want to be fully transparent. But it's conditional, right? Most of the time. And this is an unconditional listen. It's so rare to be thrust into an experience. And I'm trying to do this in a way that doesn't dominate because I can be elaborate when I love something. But I really do love this album. And now I know when you said to me in April at a social event, people aren't ready, Zane. They're not ready. And I wasn't. It really profoundly moved me. And so I want to start there, Ella. I want to talk to you. I want to ask you what you were thinking about when you said to me, they don't know what's coming. And I remember you saying that. I got very excited. And you were so dedicated when you made that statement. What was going through your mind when you said that? What did you know you had that we didn't know yet?
Honestly, I still don't know what happens when you put a record out that is like this. It was really important to me with this album to document of femininity. That is the way I'm a woman in the world. There's edges to that. There's no apologies. The body that made this album bleeds and aches and, sheds and I really tried as hard as I could to make this without shame, to get out of my own way when I felt self-preservation come up or some sort of shame, to really protect the expression even from myself. But that means that you make something like kind of raw. And I don't know where the edges of that are for people. I don't know, where this sits in 2025.
Yeah.
But everything we've put out so far, I just am so grateful that people get it and they're there for it. And it's giving me a lot of faith about like what kind of woman you're allowed to be in 2025.
That's a powerful statement.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, look, if they tell you to stay present and be in the moment, then that's a good presence to be in, right? A sense that the risks that you took, and they are risks. It takes courage to silence the voice that tells you, protect yourself.
Oh, yeah.
I
was scared.
Yeah.
This whole album was scary.
Yeah. And I can feel the fear on the record, but at the end of it, it's a deeply emotional release for all of us to hear you push through the other side. And it's more than just music, and it's more than just your story. It does have a profound effect on how you're going to live your life that day, I feel.
Oh, that's cool.
Thank
you.
In a really real way.
Thank you.
Fucking New York, man, roughed you up a bit, huh? In a good way.
I left New Zealand. I got thrown around, but it's cool. I really feel like this album is, yeah, and trying to make this portrait of me as I am, not how I want to be, not how I wish I was.
Or how we see you, how you think we see you as well, right? Which is another one.
Totally. I was like, no, just try and make an accurate portrait, kind of like a photo of yourself that you don't love, but you know captures something true about you. I kept saying the whole time to Jimmy, you know, as a way of explaining my production choices, the microplastics are in the bloodstream. I was like, yes, this is a document that talks a lot about purity, but purity in 2025 means something completely different.
Yeah.
You know?
So can we be a bit more like granular about what that what that statement meant to you? Because it's a fascinating sentence. The microplastics are in the bloodstream.
Well, just that, like, I really think this is like a time that needs capturing. I think we're on the precipice of major change in all these different directions. I think, you know, the experience of being in a human body is increasingly kind of technologically intruded upon. And
also paranoid.
No, totally. But also, like, I don't know, you know, I definitely have been thinking about this a lot in the last week. Just being in LA and like I went to to a protest on Saturday and feeling the music of protest like move through my body because someone was there with a drum and a megaphone and kind of chant was happening. I was like, there just is something so undeniable about the fact that music can get at parts of us that nothing else can. Like that was the only thing that had given me catharsis in the last couple of weeks, you know. It was literally moving. Like I felt this thing move through my body and some of this energy get released in it.
I want to talk a little bit about some of the imagery that moves around the self-reflection on this record, i.e., you know, every great story needs a set, needs an environment. And it really feels like Solar Power was you kind of coming to terms with nature and what we're missing. And then this new album, Virgin, is like, hang on, I'm going to throw myself into the concrete wasteland. You know, I'm going to go and really put myself on the front lines of the human experience, which is what a city like, amongst others, New York, really is. We were just there on the weekend and it's nothing else like it. It seemed to really influence you. It seemed to just use a lot of references to Canal Street, Prince Street, areas of New York. It's almost like watching the gangs in New York at times. You know?
Oh, God.
You know?
Yeah, no, I love New York. I love cities. You know, I grew up in Auckland, which is, you know, a beautiful city, but a different kind. And I really feel like my artistry kind of clicked into place a little bit when I moved to New York in 2021. I had this like feeling of kind of integration into like a more global experience, for better and for worse. You know, I felt sick some days, being like, if I don't take myself to Central Park, I won't touch a plant this week, you know. But I think it's good for the art to sort of like be in the soup a bit more. And yeah, it definitely sort of like put me back in conversation with the forces that are like in our world as opposed to kind of something more distant.
Well, distance is often challenging when you're going through something transformative. It's good for you sometimes, isolation, but a lot of times it's good to you just be in the rhythm of shit.
I needed to be back in because I was in London as well, making this record, and for a lot of 2023 actually, I just sort of like went there and like worked a little, but kind of like went insane and was super isolated and. But you know, it's this different isolation in the city. You're alone together, so it's, and I do think that my music has something kind of, you know, it's sort of built for the solitary listener, I think, in some ways, but with the like kinesis of a bunch of other people around.
Yeah, know? It's true. Well, it's like, you know, it's you're dancing on your own. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about that song. It kind of is this modern day kind of beautiful manuscript about how to sort of capture the emotion of being with people and yet not wanting to really break out of your own emotions for a minute, and there's hints of that in the loveliest way where it's a dance record, it's a rave record, but yeah, it's for people to bounce around in their room on their own if they so see fit.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I don't think it's rave. I think it's like some sort of party, but I don't know what. It's very kinetic. It's very physical.
Very physical.
But I don't know where the fuck you play it.
So the timeline is you were making this in 2023, and here we are in 2025, and I'm sure you've been working on it pretty much nonstop trying to get it right. But that says to me that, you've moved on a lot from what you were writing about on this record. You're a different person than you were when you made this record. So I want to establish that before we go any further, so that, as we discuss the subject matter, we give you the space to be able to reflect on what was, not what is. Hopefully we'll get to what is at the very end. It starts with Hammer. Hugely powerful image at the very beginning, right? Human, there's anatomy, there's...
It's horny, you mean?
It is, but it's also anatomical, if that's a word, It's like,
sure.
I don't know if it's love or ovulation. I don't know which one it is, but I'm feeling this rising pressure, this heat, this human experience is changing the way I look at things, and fuck, I'm going to crush something. Something's getting fucking crushed today, right? When did that show up in relation to the record? Was it a mission statement? Was it always song number one?
It was always song number one.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was actually late in 2023. We wrote a version of it. I had just come off my birth control, and I could not believe how I was feeling. There was just this, everything was pure kind of possibility. And I just felt like tapped into this kind of source of energy that was crazy. And I was like in New York, kind of walking around and I don't know, tweaking out, and like, it was amazing. It was so cool. It was spring 24 when we made it. We sort of put it aside. We didn't think it was going to be on the record. It was spring 24. Jimmy linked up with Buddy Ross, who sort of did a whole bunch of different stuff for it. Jimmy kind of wrangled this version together. He played it to me on FaceTime, and I was like, wait, Hammer's back. It's back on the album. So, and from there, I feel like actually that was a really cool kind of, piece of the blueprint just sonically. Like, I just tried to keep it as raw and pure as possible. Buddy's sounds are so earthy, and there's such a purity to them, and they're unmistakably machine made, but there's also something, that first sound in Hammer could be feels like it's coming from a very guttural place in a body. My sister said sounds like it's coming from your womb. I was like,
because I'm assuming, and maybe I'm wrong, but it sounds very much like a distorted human voice searching for breath.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. And I really thought of all the kind of, the palette of the album is actually quite simple. We use a lot of the same stuff over and over, and I thought of all the sounds we chose, which we chose so carefully as my voices, these machines are singing and crying and talking, or laughing, or whatever, in the same way that we do. So
you're duetting with them in a lot of ways. There are times, and this is one of the things I love about your performance across this record, is the moment of absolute emotional catharsis. You deliver some of the sweetest tones I've ever heard you sing.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Thank you.
Toward the end of the album, when it should be like a full-blown fit, is when you actually, it becomes something really intimate. And I wondered, everything is a deliberate decision on this record, right? Whether it's instinct turned diligence or the other way around.
Yeah.
So me recognizing that and others recognizing that was by design, the idea of like this contrast of like eruption of emotion, and let me just capture it in the sweetest way.
Well, in my experience, what happens when you, slash all these parts of yourself away, and it's such a painful process, and it's so gory, and it's not an easy journey through the tunnel. What is there at the end is something very sweet and very pure, and I often felt, you're right. We sort of built these songs trying to push right to the edge. You almost can't take it anymore, and what else could go with that but something beautiful, I don't know. It was a funny...
They never drop. That's a compliment.
No.
They build and build and build and build, and then there's always this beautiful, calm landing.
I got to let people out easy. I'm very
it's like you come through
conscious of...
Yeah.
I'll never drop you off in a crazy way. I got to put you down just right,
Really? And again, with Hammer, it sets the tone and it sets the scene for a lot of self-work that ultimately we can all absorb in our own life, right? The idea of breaking away from people's ideas of who we are and what we become, this idea of who Lorde is versus the person that you actually find yourself turning into. I feel like you set the stall in that song of like, okay,
Yeah. And it's like funny to me. It's fun. Like I'm sort of making myself laugh. Jack Harlow was working at Electric Lady when we were there towards the end of the record and kind of somehow ended up getting like most of the album played to him. It was a very funny, cool link. He's such a sweetheart.
He is.
He was like, your bars are, he was like, these are bars.
Yeah.
And I was like, your words, not mine. But, there just is this sort of like rolling cadence and, physicality. And within that, I'm trying to make myself laugh. I'm trying to make my eyebrow raise. I'm trying to kind of, I don't know, just keep it feeling super alive. And
because it's funny when you take a step back and look at it, isn't it? Like at the end of the day, even the most challenging, traumatic things you have to put yourself through, if you can't find with some distance the humor in that experience.
Find it. We got to find it, You
got to find it. And some of them are very sort of, there's a relationship between all artists and the art of performance, which doesn't often get talked about. It's really the sacred space of like, I want you to understand and preserve this moment forever. What I love about Favorite Daughter is that you take it on. You look at it from the point of view of like, not only who am I to you, but what I selfishly get out of it as well. Can we talk about that song?
Totally, yeah. Favorite Daughter, it's interesting. I feel like almost all the songs on this record, if they're sort of aimed at a person, it's a composite of people and moments that have kind of brought up a certain feeling for me. So that song is about my relationship with my mum, who, is like just the reason that I do everything that I do. She is the blueprint for me. But it's also, as much as it's about my mum, when I'm saying all the medals I won for you, breaking my back to be your favorite daughter, I felt that I was also singing to an audience, this, there's been this dynamic for the last 10, 12 years, and then further back, obviously, of wanting so badly to be loved and to kind of get this approval and to be the favorite, and it was really moving to me how, even as I was sort of singing through this, this song about my sort of like foremost idol and the person who I, think is the most amazing in the world, I was also singing about this kind of what a crazy thing it is to kind of have happened to you what I had happened to me at 16 and sort of just all of a sudden be another plane, another show, another plane, another show. And
well, they're connected, aren't they? And there's a great irony in the fact that, the person that you ultimately are performing for, which is the person you're trying to probably appeal to the most, the one that means the most to you, that the success takes you the furthest away from the place that it's just, it's such a crazy paradox.
Totally, yeah. No, that song came from very, very deep in me and was definitely one that took a lot for me to let come out. It felt like there was a lot at stake in both directions.
It's a tightrope, that one.
Yeah, and honestly, it's been like really beautiful for me and my mum, like being able to make that expression and just the way that she received it and the conversations that it's like made us have, and we've like never been closer.
I wondered about that, and I'd love to explore that a little bit further as a parent, because you're at a point now on album number 4, and as a grown up, as an adult making decisions in your life where abandonment turns to rejection, you can no longer be abandoned when you're grown up, right? So you just got to face these things down, right?
Right.
So sort of how that process has been, particular for you and your mum, who's also been on this journey with you. I mean, her role went from just being a mother to being a mother and a mama bear and a protector, and all the things that you faced, she was right there making sure that she did a good job on so many different levels than most mothers have to think about after a certain age. She was with you when you were supposed to have left home.
Oh my
right?
God. Honestly, like this album really has been one of I feel this like channel open with my mum, like because I mention her constantly on the album. I've never had more kind of empathy and understanding for for my mother and her mother and her mother, this sort of lineage of women who have sort of made me what I am. I feel like I came into some real like understanding about femininity and womanhood generally that it really feels like a kind of love letter to my mum in a lot of ways, because I had this realization the other day, I like got ready for something and I was in my kind of like black tank and my like low jeans, big belt. And I was like, oh, this looks like my mum picking me up from school. I was like, that's my blueprint of femininity. This sort of, there was an in the middleness to this like cool mum from Westmere, so I don't know. It's awesome.
We were listening to Shapeshifter when we walked in, and it's one of my favorites on the record. And you stretch out on that. I feel like you really explore that song and that sentiment to its fullest. Some of the times I'm listening to the songs, I'm like, you very consciously paused or stopped.
Sure.
But on this song, I feel like you really saw it all the way through. So therefore, it feels a little bit to me like a bit of a spiritual center to the record.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Love that.
So I'd love to talk a little bit about that again, what themes are running through that particular song, because I can tell that you're in an honest place in your life through this music. And so I'm just fascinated because I'm hanging on every word on this album, Ella. So I'm fascinated to know what drove that song.
Jimmy brought me those drums. They immediately felt like something that wanted to be in my world. I basically wrote the whole melody without lyrics. And then that sort of like showed me what the song was wanting to be about. Like Favorite Daughter was all melody for a good couple weeks. And then I was like, wait, I think I can feel what this is like, what words are like trying to be said here. So Shapeshifter was like that. And then, but I always knew it was going to be about, this thing of kind of using sex for validation. It really felt like this story that was kind of, it had always sort of gone to the like middle of the list, it didn't feel like life or death that I had to tell this story. But once I got single, I was like, no, this does want to be told. I had just been really like, I remember I'd been looking at the Tracy Emin work, Everyone That I've Ever Slept With, which is this incredible like tent and kind of all these, names of people that she slept with both sort of platonically and sexually and all this stuff. And just sort of tapping into this like, lineage of female artists that, just make this very kind of primal, raw work. And I don't know, I was just like, it's a very specific thing that I think a lot of women understand. I mean, not just women probably, but writing that chorus, I really felt something.
The roles, you mean?
Release in me, yeah. All the things that I've been to, I don't know, try and get some sort of validation, to try and kind of fit some sort of put something right in me. And, it's just, I don't know, I didn't even arrive anywhere. I didn't get to any kind of resolution meaning-wise. I just wanted to take a moment and be like, fuck.
But to say I'm not affected is to some degree a form of resolution, is it not? That is, there's some righteous reaction to the ultimate realization these roles did exist and yet I'm not affected, right?
Well, I think that was a lie. I think in the song I'm saying like, yeah, I'm totally fine. I'm cool,
But I'm so affected.
I think the core of it is the big, the big sad thing,
When did the spell get broken? So this starts when you're a teenager and we all fall in love with your music and we all start to pile way too much pressure on you and say dumb things like I would say all the time, like there's prop before and after, Lorde, but I'd stand by it. But it's a lot for any kid to hear that from any fans. And then, we get great music from you and you honor your art as a performer and as an artist, and you give fans what we want and you show up for work. But this is a different you. Now, this album is a complete break from, I think, the last 3 albums to me in terms of the human, what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
So that would suggest that a spell got broken. Something happened and you decided, you know what, I'm getting off that particular race. What happened?
Totally. Oh my God. Well, let's go. I think it was sometime around the end of 2022, the start of 2023. And all these different things converged. These things that had been building, it felt like my whole life, definitely my whole adult life. I had this deep moment of kind of existential reassessment of my role. I was like, why am I in this role? What is the way that I want to be in it that feels right to me and healthy to me? Because I tried this kind of refusal on solar power and there was something missing. I felt those songs touch my skin and not hook my guts. I was like, this isn't the best use of this kind of prime of your life that you're in. I had a sort of ripping problem with eating, with food and my body, right through 2022. And a lot of solar power, actually. I was so hungry. And, I'm lucky that I sort of was able to move through that, but it just felt like a breaking point. I remember waking up one day and being like, I cannot do this anymore. I cannot go to bed thinking about everything I ate that day and waking up worrying about all the shit I'm going to eat.
It's a mental prison. That's just it's torture.
Completely robbed me of all of my life force and creativity. It was the most boring time of my life. And then, I also really felt, I felt this thing that I was 25 and I was like, hang on, there's always been someone who was God. I've always chosen someone, It was my parents, as it is for a lot of people. And then I would sort of put one person in, another person in, usually men, but not always. And it was this thing that I would do to protect myself from having to be the one who had the answers about what my life was meant to be. And I really had the sense at the start of 2023 that I had to cut a whole lot of cords, be alone, see what power grew in me to be able to be in my life the way I need to be in my life. And it was rugged, and I got out of my relationship and I made, kind of big changes across the board. I went to London to try and kind of meet people to work with. I started working with Fabiana, working with a woman, and that space felt like really incredible and restorative. And so I sort of had this real year of trying to find a more sustainable connection to this power that is in me. With this album, the whole time I kept saying, bigger toe box, when you buy a pair of shoes and your toe's right there and you're like, well, I'm right at the end already. It's not too far to go. I was like, make it real big because you're going to grow.
Yeah.
And honestly, a lot of the time making this, I felt quite fragile. But the music is very robust in a lot of ways. There's real heft to it, Yeah, it's not fucking
It's marching
around
music,
like that.
man. It's marching music.
And that was in part because I knew in making it that big, I would be forced to acknowledge that I have power to step up.
Yeah.
I can see how easy it is as a woman to never quite grab it all, because it's so scary and so much of society is telling you not to grab it all. There's real risks. But I just sort of worked away, kind of in secret, me and Jimmy, and I just tried to build a world that felt like one I wanted to live in.
What was the breakthrough?
Actually, I remember writing If She Could See Me Now in London.
Oh, I love that song.
And sitting alone. I actually have an amazing story. We wrote that song and I was sitting alone on the steps of my Airbnb and I was kind of stoned. And it was late at night and I was sitting listening to it on my phone and some kids rode past on a lime and tried to steal my phone out.
In London?
Yeah, and we touched hands around the phone. And I was like, it was a cool moment.
Wow.
Kind of early demo, They didn't get the phone.
They didn't get the phone.
Kind of cool. Kids are amazing. I'm like, wow, that's really brave. It seems hard,
Yeah, no, they're in
Zip past on a scooter.
They know what they're doing. Yeah, but us Kiwis, man, we're cut from a different cloth, Derek.
I'm trying to think of the other big kind of moments. I feel like Man of the Year was a big one, just in terms of being this is the kind of world that I want to live in as a woman. This is a big corner of what femininity is to me, is acknowledging this massive kind of throbbing masculinity that I have.
And the key words there are to me, because what's interesting is, and perhaps you knew this, you put a song like that out where the title is provocative as that. It's beautiful. It's art in itself. It's a fucking frameable piece of art, right? And you know that it's immediately going to draw people who feel very passionate about this conversation and live in this community much closer to you, because they're going to feel, as some of my friends have said, like, okay, does she speak with us now? Does she speak for us? And by saying this is what it means to me, I think you opened up, and I saw a really interesting article, and I really want to try to remember who did it, because it was really well written, where they explain, maybe you've read it as well, they explained that the emotions that they went through, from mistrust through to a much better realization. They had a moment on the bus where they saw themselves while listening to the song for the upteenth time and realized that actually they had been judging it because they were scared to acknowledge what you were acknowledging, that it's complicated. It's a beautiful piece.
Whoa, I want to read that.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. And I guess that you need the Stones to put that song out, right? and make it yours, and know that it's for you, no matter how people feel about it. Am I wording that correct?
It definitely just felt like a statement that I had to make to go forward. Really, like everything on Virgin felt like if I don't make this group of statements, my throat's going to stay locked up, you know. Each of them kind of had to come out, come what may, because I'm so aware of no one wants to impinge on the space of kids who are like on the front lines, because it truly is like a battle being fought in this country. It is so major. No part of me wants to take that oxygen. But at the same time, I was like, it is my experience, and I believe that it's valid, even if it is harder to box up, even if it doesn't maybe feel like an arrival. It's not an arrival. That's why I've got duct tape on my chest. There's an impermanence to it. There's a short-term fix to it, you know. And I think that my journey with this stuff is going to be a spiral, you know. It's just going to keep kind of winding around and showing me more stuff. And I'm so grateful that people have had grace about this, and that there's like discomfort too, and that's part of... There's
discourse, and it's a good thing, right?
Yeah, and that's part of, also that's part of why I make a statement. It's a big question. I'm asking a big question when I put a song like that out. I'm not saying this is how it is. I'm saying, is this how it is? What more information can I get here? And I've been given so much more information.
More questions. We have to keep asking ourselves and others questions. And we get very attached to the idea of arrival. All of us do. For some kind of answer that's going to give us purpose or clarity, right? But we don't get them.
It's life, right? Baby.
It's life, baby. It's like how it is. We just got to keep pushing forward. And that's what I love about this album, is that there isn't a permanence to this.
Yeah.
It's very much like, you know, this
is like a little construction site to me, like this weird little zone of scaffolding and a couple synths, and kind of this, it feels like this very temporary, you know, I don't know, something. We barely put the walls up. I kept saying load-bearing pillars only as it pertained to the production. Nothing, no adornment, no nice finish on the wall, you know, only what we need to be here. I'm like, even like the album's like 36 minutes or something. I was like, 36 minutes, that's so much of someone's time. I'm not going to take more of your time. I know what it's like to be in this world. Do you know what I mean? I was like, it's a huge fucking privilege to get 36 minutes of someone's time on a day. I'm going to juice that lemon to the nth degree. There's no time to waste on a macro level or a micro level. There's no time to waste.
There's no time.
There's so much stuff. Economy. I really went for economy. And even like, it's really baked into the ethos of the album. I took so much away from Jimmy. I was like, nope, if there's no random snare that comes in just for that part. We're using something we've already got, you know, even better if it's already in another song. There's a lot of, I'm just using the same parts. I'm so unconcerned with futurism. I'm like, we've had so many awesome projections of the future. I'm drowning in them. What about right now? We need help now. We need tools now. And we've probably already made it the thing that's going to help us. Yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of anti the future is, I'm like, let's focus on right now.
Yeah, let's leave it there. How did you feel when it was like, I got nothing left?
Relief, I think. I felt quite proud. Just of that thing of sort of that I was able to get out of the way just enough to make the expression. Like even right to the end, the last song that we finished for the album was Broken Glass. I could not finish that song.
Why? What was in the way?
I was so scared to be like, my eating disorder. Like it was just so, every part of me was like, keep yourself safe. Don't share this part of you. Don't put yourself in a situation
don't
where
break
you
the
have
mirror.
Don't break the fucking mirror, bitch. You know. So, it was just exhausting. And so to like finally kind of have made all the statements that I felt like needed to be on Virgin. Clear Blue was another really important one. I was like, and that came kind of towards the end too. I was like, this needs to be here. This
two of the most confessional songs on the record. And for me, going back to Broken Glass, the line that just crushed me is I think that it's love.
Yeah,
dude.
Yeah.
I mean, to come to the sense of realization that for all of the casting of judgment, that ultimately it had been a self-imposed affair.
And more of that thing of
is that, am I
who's
right?
going to be God?
Is that, yeah.
Like trying to, is this force going to be God for me? If this is, you know, who am I when I'm not telling myself, you have to not do this, you have to do that.
Well, the dark side of love. We talk about love all the time. What a glorious thing. Or when we lose it, how much we want it back. But we forget that actually it can be a destructive experience too, if we're not careful, right?
Sure.
Yeah, man. How did you get past it? How did you finish that song? Just
bashed it out. I don't know. Bashed it out. Jimmy was like, do not leave. That's true. I feel like we ate treats. I was like...
You gave yourself something to look forward to?
It fucked me up, like being back in this zone about, you know, sort of denial of self and trying to stay as small as possible. Like it just made me feel sick, you know. I was like, I need a cookie, I think.
Yeah.
We got there.
Give me some sugar.
Yeah.
The last song was immensely emotional and will be for everyone hearing it. It's just for the very fact that you know it's coming, right? You can't listen to the album start to finish and think that the last song is going to be some kind of deep moment of resolution. And I'm gonna not try to do this the splaining thing as much as I can because I'm so in love with this album. I just want to open it up for you to talk about that experience of recording that song, David.
There's a lot of strength to this album, and I always felt that the end needed to be a real breakdown of that. I feel completely vulnerable on that song. And even how we treat the vocal, it's so human. I felt this journey happening through the song. It sort of comes to this big, quite, you know, machine-made climax. There's something very almost immortal about it.
Well, you're breaking up.
Yeah.
You're literally breaking up. The atoms are falling apart.
And then I'm back to being really mortal again at the end. And I don't know. It was a lot of the songs on this album were, I just sort of followed them. I didn't really understand the song when it was coming out. And I kept feeling this composite of memories, but it feels undeniable to me and inevitable in this album that's the biggest I've ever been. The climax of that song, you know.
What's the last line in the song?
Am I ever going to love again?
And then you say something at the very...
I say, tell it to him.
So I'm not going to be that specific, but I want to, it's such a powerful ending to the album because it, I mean, is that the mantra, right? That's the mantra of the whole experience, isn't it?
I guess it is.
Where did it come from, that line? Was it a ad-lib?
It was, I just kind of, put this bit on the end. It felt like it wanted to circle back to the fountain, to the park, where the album starts, but in this much more sort of contemplative moment. And just, I mean, I feel like I just keep returning to this in my work, that there's no choice for me but to tell the truth, even if I don't want to be. And by truth, I mean like an emotional truth, often with the songs on this album and other albums, I will be like, wait, this person said this and it's making you feel like this? What is that, And I know now not to try and understand. It's all just, my job is to make the expression, to the fullest, without shame. Let it be everything it needs to be and trust that that has value. It's a tricky one, but I don't know. I think that's what you got to do.
The concept of love is complicated when you put yourself in front of a lot of people and we tell you that we love you, but really what we love is what you've made and what it means to us, and then we become obsessed with the person who made it, but we never truly get to know that person, and so it creates a complicated identity relationship. I've experienced from talking to a lot of musicians and a lot of artists. And then there's this idea of kind of how that impacts your ability to process normal relationships, or quote unquote normal relationships, meaningful relationships, I should say. Looking back on it, is this album been a part of trying to reclaim that experience for yourself and not get too caught up in the idea of sort of the complications of what love means? And because that's that line at the end, will I ever fall in love again, is very simple. It's a very simple question, very hard but simple question.
Yeah, I don't know. I think
Am I down the rabbit hole on this now?
Well, no, I don't know. I do think this album sort of grapples with what is public, what is private. There is some of that happening. I think I was sort of trying to work through that, and I definitely, there's a degree of sharing with this album that is the line's blurry. I'm like, what's private? You're like in bed with me. But I think, I don't know. I guess maybe that's just always been a question in my work since I got famous. I don't know. But I like this thought about it. It's interesting. I hadn't thought about it myself.
This idea of fame at a young age, though, is something that you and only a few people can come out the other side of and make great music and reflect on it, right? At times, you don't get to album number 4.
Yeah.
So no one's asking you the question. Yeah. Or it's worse.
Yeah.
And so looking back on it, and there are reflections toward yourself. There are moments when you say, the innocence of a teenage innocence, or I can't remember the exact phrasing of it. Yeah. And you refer to pure heroine at one point, and there's moments where I can see you starting to identify and at least try to recognize that person again. What has that experience been like looking back on it now, and how have you kind of got it into a place of understanding what you went through?
I think for a long time, I've tried to be very binary about it. When I'm in the studio, or when I'm in America, I'm an artist. When I go home to New Zealand, I'm not an artist. And I turn that part of myself off. It's impossible, obviously. Soul power, I was trying to go all the way that way. I just want to be that. I don't want to be this. I just want to be that. Let me be that. Didn't feel great. And I've sort of realized now, and again, this speaks to the kind of trying to find this purest version of yourself. The purest version of me is famous out in the world. It's just that she's maybe in a garden, experiencing ego death in the middle of the night on a heroic dose, I definitely had the sense with this because, an inextricable part of this album is that, I did a lot of kind of psychedelics and really tried to, break myself all the way down.
Did they work?
Yeah.
Sounds like it.
It sounds like it. I'm like, do you think it would?
Of course, but I also don't want to assume it was the psychedelics, right? Because it could also have been an enormous amount of the work that you do after
it's
you
all
do.
of it.
It's all of it, right? It's all of it, right?
It's all of it. But all the Ellas have to be good for you to go forward.
Oh.
You have to go and heal 5-year-old Ella. You got to go and heal 15-year-old Ella. You've got to go and heal 16-year-old Ella.
Yeah.
25-year-old Ella. They've all got to be saying yes for you to go forward. Wow. And I feel that so much in this music. I'm like, oh my God, I feel that. And what was that? I'm like, this sounds like me playing as a kid, this drum beat. I don't know how to explain it, but it does. Yeah. There are, favorite daughter, these things that have been there forever. Yeah. Very young parts of me sing. I think that's what you're saying the sweetness of some of these parts. Sometimes I feel like it's like me as a child singing.
Current affairs.
So, current affairs, well, true.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, I think you're right. There is some sort of reconciliation that had to happen. I sort of see this album as kind of getting back to this baseline. I was like, okay, just need to get everything where it needs to be. And then something cool's going to happen. Feels like a real settling of a whole lot of scores or something. Untying a whole lot of knots. Just sort of arriving at this peace. At what cost, but it's peace.